It was the PlayStation 1 smash hit Metal Gear Solid that first catapulted Hideo Kojima's status in the gaming industry, and it wasn't until advancements in graphical engines and 3D animation technology, thanks to arguably the biggest generational leap from PS1 to PS2, did we really start to unravel the brilliant and sometimes utterly bonkers mind of the esteemed Hideo Kojima. Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 for me are the golden era of Hideo Kojima's astounding work and probably my favourite era as a gamer. Of course, there's games more recently that have truly increased the industry's standards, but there was a huge gulf in quality between Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 and what came before them. It was a chasm-sized leap of improvement from sitting down in my room on Christmas morning in 1998 to play Metal Gear Solid for the first time and being absolutely blown away by the fact I could knock on wall surfaces and have a guard come and investigate while I snuck around the other side to throw them on the ground before choking them out.
Man, it'll never get better than that!
But oh, how it got better than that. Hideo Kojima's mind was working at incomprehensible levels as we hit the millennium, and Kojima took gamers and the gaming industry with it to a place nobody thought possible, and quite frankly, he's a goddamn pioneer in what is today considered to be the absolute basics in stealth-focused games. And yet still, a lot of games, even today, don't live up to his standards. I wanted to take a look into Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater because they both have such massive places in my heart and maintain such strong nostalgic value for me as a gamer. There's so many similarities and a fairly obvious thread that runs through Kojima's games all the way to Metal Gear Solid 5, which is where he eventually parted ways with Konami in one of gaming's most high-profile breakups.
Look, there's got to be a way we can work past this. Okay, I can't imagine my life without you.
Hideo Kojima has always had a passion for movie direction, and the intros of both games have that full-scale James Bond-esque spy movie feel to them, with snippets of the game itself being shown and transitioning into slick, fast-paced, up-close and artistic shots that are symbolic of what the player's about to experience, narratively speaking. The Metal Gear Solid 2 intro playing probably one of the greatest gaming soundtracks ever, as chemical codes and mesmerizing strands of DNA imagery, and then there's the Metal Gear Solid 3 intro, playing a jazzy 60s inspired soundtrack as newspaper headlines based on the Cold War flash alongside the skeleton of a snake slithering its way across the screen. And of course, both intros have Kojima's name shamelessly slapped all over them. Who planned the game? Kojima did. Who designed the game? Well, Kojima did. Who wrote the game? I'm pretty sure it was Kojima. Who made sure there was always enough bog roll in the Konami staff toilets? That's right, Kojima did. Adding features and mechanics to Metal Gear Solid 2 that sound so simple to the average gamer of today, but in 2001 we were all walking on foreign ground, like hiding dead or unconscious bodies, lights that could be destroyed to decrease the enemy's visibility, or enemies being able to detect your shadow. These were all readily apparent details that were very easy to spot, but there were some other smaller mind-boggling details in Metal Gear Solid 2, like being outside for too long and you'd catch a cold, and as a result Snake would involuntarily sneeze at the worst possible time. Oh no. Or the enemy guards getting their jollies off a naked lady picture that some knobhead has plastered 100 feet up a wall. Who put that there? The fact that you can slip on bird shit, getting too close to a hand dryer in the bathroom will turn it on, kicking the shit out of a locker and having it kick the shit out of you back in retaliation. These were, albeit hilarious details, they were details that not only taught me about the possibilities of joy within a game, but I also have Mr. Kojima to thank for never ruining a pair of shoes or injuring myself by stepping in bird shit. Roll on November 2004 and the release of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater saw even more intricate details, like the first time I interacted with this new environment and the unforgettable moment of shooting down that beehive to make the guard panic and sprint across the bridge. But did you know you can shoot the rope bridge that he ran across to destabilize it and have the returning guards fall to their peril? This is another example of Kojima's passion for film and the awareness of how a rope bridge that has been centre stage to some of the most memorable scenes ever, and the same can be said about the first time we're introduced to the rope bridge in Metal Gear Solid 3 in a gameplay sense, and then again during the infamous cutscene where a naive Snake comes face to face with the boss and is sent plummeting to the river beneath. There are other tiny details, like your stamina runs out quicker in the mountains due to the thinner air, but when enemies are on high alert your stamina is higher because Snake is pumped with adrenaline. These are just a few of the many tiny details, but even the more noticeable ones were groundbreaking for their time, like a camo indicator signifying how camouflaged you are with mud and blood on your clothes adding or decreasing Snake's visibility, or having to stop playing entirely and take an online medical practitioner's course to earn a botched PhD just so you can study every inch of Snake's body in order to heal all the various types of wounds proficiently. The biggest controversy surrounding Metal Gear Solid 2 was Kojima's decision to include a second playable character. Fans of Metal Gear Solid became so acquainted with the character Snake that there was a mini rebellion in outrage of this news, especially considering the E3 2000 trailer was all set on the infamous tanker that sailed down the Hudson River, which was the first 2 hours of the game and only featured the main man himself, Solid Snake. The following 7 hours or so we played as the softly spoken Owen Wilson, otherwise known as Raiden, which devastated the original Metal Gear Solid fans who were hoping to jack off to the bromancingly arousing grizzle of David Hayter's voice.
Watch where you're shooting.
When it comes to the performance of the voice acting though, across the board it's pretty much impeccable, and what's even more impressive is that English isn't Kojima's native language, and to pick this cast so perfectly for their roles would have been impressive even for an English-speaking developer. There's an element of cheesiness to the performances, but I think that's a part of all the greatest spy movies' charm, and the only real standout hiccup in Metal Gear Solid was probably the contrast of emotion between Raiden's game over screens between rows.
Oh God, no! Jack!
And the Colonel who sounds like he's calling Raiden for dinner.
Raiden!
I think Raiden was introduced for newcomers to the Metal Gear Solid series to not only feel like they're meeting the character for the first time, which we all were, but also to have basic tutorials explained without patronising the great Solid Snake himself. In reality, Raiden went on to become a main staple in the series, and although he probably won't have quite as many fans as Snake, he earned enough of a positive reputation and had such an impactful influence on the narrative that this softly spoken, flamboyantly blonde heartbreaker had probably the most sadistic backstory in the series, after he was later revealed as once being a brainwashed child super soldier capable of killing in cold blood without blinking an eye, and garnered the nickname Jack the Ripper.
Don't you know I'm loco?
I think with Snake being the main playable character throughout Metal Gear Solid 3 won most fans over a lot easier than it did with the introduction of Raiden, though you could argue that Kojima was still a little torn himself and even included the option to start the game wearing a Raiden mask, just covering his bases and making sure the Raiden fans weren't offended either. I much prefer Snake, as I think most do, and the fact that Metal Gear Solid 3 was a prequel gave Kojima so much freedom to create a narrative that went anywhere his wild mind would take him. Now, whether that's a good thing or not has often come up for debate, with numerous reports suggesting he's often had colleagues or even the higher powers above him shackle some of his ideas to ground him and prevent his ideas spiraling out of control into a completely nonsensical plot. So if the Metal Gear Solid series as we know it is the outcome of Kojima's imaginative creations that have been partly contained, then God knows how unfeasibly convoluted the narrative would have become had he been unshackled. Well, Kojima Productions' first crack at a game produced Death Stranding, and personally I think this game is genius, though a lot of people probably don't agree with that statement, but that's a different story. But sticking with Metal Gear Solid though, in Sons of Liberty he was chronologically restricted by the narrative, but that didn't stop him from creating a masterpiece of a story, with Kojima's tales often taking us down a road that has an unfathomable amount of twists and turns and avenues of lore sprouting off the main road, with avenues off that avenue and avenues off those avenues, and so many characters being betrayed and backstabbed that I'm fairly certain even Kojima himself didn't even know who was going to cop for it next.
Stab somebody!
Yet somehow I spent the entirety of both Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 on the edge of my seat, and every single time I play through them again, I'll find something new that I didn't notice the last time I played and latch onto it in complete awe. Kojima never forgets to inject a purposeful dose of human emotion into his stories, and this contrast of emotion against the backdrop of a dark, visceral war is what became a signature of his. He never shies away from throwing in some comedy moments like having Raiden running around bollock naked, but having that full range of emotions is always a sign of a great storyteller. Kojima is a filthy one too. I mean, his games are littered with sexual references, from naughty posters being plastered everywhere, that secret Easter egg getting Meryl to whip her pants off in Metal Gear Solid 1, Snake getting laid in the jungle, a character called Deep Throat, or Otacon's unfortunate relationships with women, and even his own sister, EE, which obviously led me to putting her down.
Raiden, you didn't!
I fucking did. The action in the Metal Gear Solid series is a given and can stand alongside some of the greatest action sequences ever, but the portrayal of emotion at times is so unique and raw, like the relationship between Snake and the boss, or after EE dies, Otacon is forced to keep going while carrying her pet parrot that tragically echoes the thoughts of his dead sister. It's heartbreaking stuff, man. When it comes to character design though, there's always this interesting blend of science versus paranormal, and the explanation between each character and their abilities is always so fascinating to unravel, but I always felt like that the Cobra unit in Metal Gear Solid 3 were interesting in design, but they didn't hold a candle to Dead Cell in Metal Gear Solid 2 in my opinion. I felt the Cobra unit was a little obvious in their design, with most of their abilities being based on the features of the jungle, like the Fear's spider-like traits, or the pyrotechnic maniac flying around like a mosquito and Snake as the swatter. I much preferred the design and originality of Dead Cell, like Fortune and her seemingly supernatural and mysterious gift to alter the path of incoming bullets, and then there's Vamp and his speedy vampiric abilities, and Fat Man, the most unfortunately named demolition expert who glides around on rollerblades. But when it actually comes to the boss battles with this twisted group of lunatics, I might prefer the design of Metal Gear Solid 2's characters, but the battles themselves were so unique and memorable in Metal Gear Solid 3. The 100-year-old character, The End, is probably one of the most original boss battles I can think of in any game. With so many possible outcomes, the whole ordeal facing the end showcases everything I've already mentioned in one boss battle. The tiny details, such as the reflection of his lens scope with the pet parrot of his acting as his spotter. The whole backstory behind the character is again a typical fascinating insight into Kojima's character building, and the gameplay mechanics at play with thermals, camouflages, the ability to kill him before the boss battle, or seemingly waiting until the old geezer croaks of old age. It's genius. Then of course there's the final boss battle with the appropriately named The Boss, which while it isn't probably the most notable from a gameplay stance, but it is from the ride that we've just been on to get here. The stunning and very picturesque Zen environment, as white petals will burst into the air as the waves of bullets are exchanged between Snake and the boss, and of course the emotional final conversation between these two elite characters. With Metal Gear Solid 2 there was still a high level of creativity involved, but nothing quite like changing your controller port on the PS1 console to outsmart Psycho Mantis, or the diverse methods of approach to taking down the End. The one boss battle that truly stands out for me in Metal Gear Solid 2 was the final boss battle against Solidus Snake, but not because of the battle itself, more because of the conversation between Raiden and the AI Patriots that happens over codec before the battle takes place, a conversation that's seen so many analytical dissections of its meaning and a frighteningly ever-growing truth of where society is heading and could already be in the real world, suggesting that artificial intelligence is systematically controlling and optimizing the evolution of mankind. It's terrifying stuff. Both Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 are without doubt genuine masterpieces of the gaming industry and have enough similarities beyond them both simply being major entries into a series, because there is an element of it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, being applied to Metal Gear Solid 3, and even though Konami rebuilt their engine to design Metal Gear Solid 3, it contained the same mechanical core of the game as Metal Gear Solid 2 did. The level design was far more expansive in Metal Gear Solid 3 though, allowing for so much more variety in stealth stealth tactics, whereas the tight corridors of the tanker or the big shell forced the player's hand into certain stealth tactics. The new survival mechanics in Metal Gear Solid 3 being implemented in conjunction with the threats of the jungle added a whole new element that I don't think anyone would have predicted coming off the back of Metal Gear Solid 2, let alone them being as enjoyable and vital to the experience as they were. I believe Kojima went a little overly aggressive though when it came to storytelling in Metal Gear Solid 3, with character designs that were almost too far-fetched, even for the Metal Gear Solid series. So if I had to choose between the two, there's a small part of me that's biased and reluctant to pick Metal Gear Solid 3 because of the nostalgic value Metal Gear Solid 2 has for me, but if I'm being completely honest to myself, every time I picture playing Metal Gear Solid 2, I'm on the tanker with Snake, and every time I remember the majority of the game is being played on Big Shell with Raiden, it just doesn't feel quite as exciting to me. Then of course, purely from a gameplay standpoint, Metal Gear Solid 3 has so many features, tiny details and mechanics that totally outmatch Metal Gear Solid 2. Time played its part, ideas were born, and features were added to a formula that was already one of the greatest in gaming, and even though Metal Gear Solid 2 probably has a bigger place in my heart, Metal Gear Solid 3 for me is the better of the two. What do you guys think though? Which is your favourite? I could talk all day about the tiny details in these games because I'm well aware I've missed a bunch of little details, so let me know what your favourite moments in these two games were. I'm genuinely intrigued. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video and want to see more, then click subscribe and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.